Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Harper. I'm the Executive Director of the AACFB, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's webinar, AI Leadership in Equipment Finance, Why Strategy Beats Technology. Please note that today's webinar is being recorded, so all participant lines will be muted during the broadcast. However, you can submit a question at any time during today's presentation using the Q&A box, and they will be answered by the end of the webinar. Any unauthorized recording of this webinar is strictly prohibited. Our presenter today is RJ Grimshaw with the AI CEO. He's an expert in AI, and we welcome him today to share his in-depth information with us. At this time, I want to turn it over to RJ. It is all yours.
Thanks, Monica. I appreciate that. I wouldn't say I wouldn't classify myself as an expert. I would classify myself that is someone that's very curious, and I firmly believe in innovation within an organization and company, and that's what led me to the path of really discovering AI. A little bit of background: I actually invested in a company in 2022 in April that was called Catapult AI. And really, what that was used for is KPIs for companies across the country. And at the time, I was a CEO for Unify Equipment Finance. And the goal was to roll this tool out to our 6,000 clients that wanted to leverage AI with their KPIs. As they say, though, timing's everything. And unfortunately, this AI tool was a year too early because the following October is when ChatGPT came out with OpenAI. And I was already leveraging in the business different AI tools in terms of writing. There's a tool called Jasper AI that we were leveraging for writing different emails and things of that nature. So when OpenAI came out, I quickly said, boy, this is something that's really going to change how we work in our industry. And at the time, I was at Unify for 10 years, and it gave me a great time to I had the business set up, a strong foundation to really exit the business and really focus on AI. And I've been doing that now for 3 years. However, with that, AI is changing at such a pace. Even myself, I get burnt out and frustrated by it at certain times because every time you learn something, there's something new that comes out. So really, what we've done is we've really have slowed down in terms of how we leverage AI. And the reason why we're talking about prompting today is that it doesn't matter what AI tool you use. Prompting will always be the number one factor in your outputs. We hear so much talk about automation and leveraging AI and automation within your organization. However, to drive that automation, you need to understand how to prompt and build a prompt properly. And it's frustrating at times, specifically when it feels like it's magical, and then the next day it feels like it's madness. I experience that. And at times I have to go back, or our team has to go back and slow down and really slow down and understand what we're trying to achieve with our objective. And we're going to talk about that today. AI only knows what you're providing it. You have to think of it that AI is like a intern. It's a team member of your team that you leverage for different things. Everything from drafting emails to researching to doing doc requests to doing math to spreading financials. One of the main criteria in terms of privacy for leveraging AI is everyone that is putting in any type of information. It could be your information for your business. It could be an end user information. It could be dealer information. You really should pay $20 a month for the private tenant, what they call a private tenant, which means that all your data stays contained in your own AI. It's not used to train models. It's not used to, uh, you know, in terms of the knowledge base and things of that nature. It protects you from a privacy perspective that everything is staying in your tenant again. And that's the main core focus when it comes to privacy. Microsoft Copilot, if your company offers that, or if that's what you're using as your AI within your organization, Copilot does the same thing. It's in your own tenant. Then you can also collaborate within your tenant where teammates can use that. But I'm getting in front of myself here. I need to back up and just focus really on the core message that AI feels random because we treat it like Google at times. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we overcome that. And really it comes down to a weak prompt versus strong prompt. And when we think of prompting, we should think about it like using Legos. You're building a foundation of Legos one on top of each other, and there's certain parts of a prompt that do certain things. And the most important piece of this is the contextual knowledge. It's understanding you explaining to it what you want the model to do. You have to provide it, you have to provide it specifics, and you have to be very literal. AI is very literal to the point where I drive my wife nuts now because it's black or white. There's no more gray area. When you use these tools to the degree that I use them on a daily basis, and I use all of them, Claude, OpenAI, Perplexity, Grok, Manus, when you're driving, what I call driving these tools, you have to be specific to exactly what you want it to do. You have to be specific to what you want the outcome to be. You also have to be specific to the tone, to the degree of that output. For example, when you're writing an email, is it a friendly email? Is it a business email? And then you also have to pressure check the outputs by regrounding the prompting. What happens is AI is built on open source and it's built to always be moving forward, always be asking you what is next? What do you want next? As you see when you're prompting, it'll always go on to say, do you want to do this next? And a lot of times you'll say, where did that come from? I don't want it to do that. I want it to stay here. That goes back to the contextual knowledge of the prompting and looking at what you're trying to achieve. So here's an example of a weak prompt. We've done this. Write an email to a landscaper. It will give you an output. It will give you an email. However, it won't give you any contextual knowledge of what you're trying to achieve versus the strong prompt on the right, where you're explaining who you are, a commercial equipment finance broker, and we can actually go deeper than that. We have a tool that will scrape your website to build a persona specifically for you, because that's where the individualism comes into leveraging these AI tools. You don't want to sound like everyone else. You don't want to sound like the big institutions or the big finance companies. You have your own niche that you're trying to fill in the marketplace that you're trying to service. So what we first want to do is build a persona for you as the equipment finance broker. And we do that by just searching a website. We built a tool that will tell exactly what the persona is. And then what we do is we embed that. And again, I'm getting advanced here, but we embed that in your prompting. So every time it understands who you are before you go and serve the marketplace. Okay. So investing a little bit of time, like anything, will allow you to become better at prompting and better at understanding relative to the outcome that you're looking for. So the areas, this is very important. You'll be receiving this presentation. However, when you're looking at prompting, the first thing you want to do, like we just talked about, is the persona or the role. You're establishing the perspective, defining who you are in this transaction or in this engagement with the AI. And you're also telling it the role that it's taking. We actually leverage, we talk to our AI. We actually do not type to our AI because AI is built to be conversational. It's a large language model. To drive it from a conversational perspective, you'll have better results. So we talk to it. So for example, we would say, we are a three-person equipment financing broker shop in Southeast Michigan, and our core marketplace is small construction equipment serving transactions $50,000 and below. That's now our persona. The next part of that prompt is the task. So we would ask it, we would like you to write a very concise email regarding equipment financing as we head into the spring season and how we serve our client base. The next one is the contextual knowledge. And this is very important. And this is where people get in trouble with AI because so many people think that AI is a magic wand. AI will fix things. Early on, when I was training organizations across the country, it was on sales for sales teams. And I would receive a call from the owner or national sales manager, and they would ask for me to come in and teach their salespeople how to leverage AI. And I quickly learned and started this state when I would receive that phone call that from an understanding perspective, AI will not take a bad salesperson and make them a great salesperson or even a good salesperson. Actually, it'll hurt them because they don't have the true contextual knowledge of what it is to be a good salesman or salesperson, I should say. However, if you have a good salesperson and you teach them and they understand how to use AI from a prompting perspective, you will make them great. And where the real magic happens is with the great salesperson. And if you're a great salesperson as the owner, you can really leverage AI to become incredible and more efficient. Scott Wheeler just wrote an article last week, if you follow Scott, that he is seeing in the marketplace that unfortunately, because of margin compression, brokers are going to have to do twice as much business to have a net result. So that's why these tools are so important in leveraging and understanding them. And it's a muscle that you build. It's just like going to the gym. You don't go to the gym one time and all of a sudden you're in shape and you're a bodybuilder. You go to the gym repetition over and over and over again. We highly recommend that you take 10 to 15 minutes a day and work just on your prompting from a workflow perspective. And I can give you some examples of that. The next
Um,
thing in regards
we
to
had
the prompt.
a question there. It says, I use a master prompt to establish persona role. Is that acceptable or preferable, or do you recommend establishing a persona role in every prompt?
Well, it depends what you're trying to achieve for the output. It's very important. You can use a master persona prompt in your open AI where you log in and you can do your own personalization. That's where I would put that master prompt. But when you start building out your GPTs, your custom GPTs that I'm going to show you in a little bit, it's going to drive off of your master prompt and you don't have to be as specific in your custom GPT. However, it will never hurt you or hinder the outputs if you do it twice or three times. Because what it's doing, it's rereading that, and then the memory kicks in the agentic piece of this, where it'll remember that and it'll add to its memory of who you are and what you're doing. An example of that right now is if you went into your OpenAI and prompted it, and there's some crazy prompts that go around that I love in terms of, you are my master business coach that's very aggressive, calling me out on things that I say I'm going to do that I never execute upon. Please research my threads and tell me where I'm missing the mark in terms of my business. And then that will pull from your memory of all your threads in terms of your contextual knowledge, and it'll give it back to you. We actually clear our memory at times because if we start on a project for a certain individual or organization, we don't want that to bleed over into our other threads. And in OpenAI, there's two things you can leverage. One is projects, and that's a great area where you can have your knowledge bases in terms of what you're trying to accomplish, fix off of one main prompt, and it keeps everything right in a project and or a custom GPT. I'm going to show you today some custom GPTs that we've built to give you examples how to do that. Any other questions, Monica?
Nope, not at this
Okay,
time.
thank you. And then you have to set the tone. The tone is very important in terms of are you friendly? I use empathetic a lot in my tone. I'll use business. I'll also say, from a tone perspective, do not use trite words. So it's not using the words that you see AI that it comes out. They love using the word fluff. I have deleted that word out of my AI by saying never use the word fluff back to that master prompt that we discussed before. That's setting the tone for all the outputs that will be provided as we work with the LLM. And then the output format is really how do you want the output to come to you? Do you want it in a paragraph form? Do you want it in bullet points? Do you want an email draft? Do you want numbered steps? Do you want a process map? It really clarifies the expectations. In an advanced output, you're able to actually put in what you want the output to look like. So that could be an attachment and or it could be a copy paste where you say, this is how I would like my output structured. And I'll show you that again in a little bit in terms of a custom GPT that we built for doc requests when you're sending to a funder. These elements are critical in crafting prompts. And if you just take this note, and actually what we do is we ask people to write because we get so engrossed in using the OpenAI and the ChatGPT, and we're looking at monitors all day. We tell people if you want to really build out a strong prompt library, take a piece of paper, follow along on the persona role, the task, the contextual knowledge that you're doing, the tone, and the output. Persona, I want to add to persona real quick. There's actually two personas involved when you're driving your LLM. The first persona is who you are, and the second persona is who you're selling to or who you're engaging with. A lot of people forget that. They realize that there's one persona and they think about them. However, if you really want to have advanced prompting, you want to include the persona of the person, again, that you're engaging with for the outcome. That's a very important piece of information there. Then the second function or the second method that we use is what we call COCR. We've already figured out the context. We know what the output is. We put constraints around it. Be concise. Do not use synthetic data. Fact check your output. Those are little secrets that we leverage as well. Then human in the loop. We hear about human in the loop over and over and over and over again. And there's days at times that I will be engaging with my OpenAI. It doesn't matter if I'm using 5.2 or 5.1 or 4.0. It just feels like it's gone haywire. And the reason it's gone haywire is because I've cut a corner in terms of building a proper prompt. And then I get frustrated by verifying it because it's way off base. And that's where people get frustrated because it's like, that's not right. That's hallucination. And they give up on using the model. They give up on trying to leverage AI versus working that muscle and building an enhanced prompt. So the verification piece of this is very important, specifically when you're sending outbound emails or outbound communication or doing any type of research relative to your business to validate that. One way to validate this is typically every third engagement that we do with a prompt, we ask the LLM to pressure check above and validate and fact check. That will protect you from it providing any false or fake data, and it will also give you a confidence rating on the facts as well as the prompt. It'll say confidence high, confidence low, confidence medium, and you're able to validate that and get confidence in the output that it's providing you before you send that email to someone or before you do research relative to a topic that you're researching for your business. So, examples of how to use prompting in your LLMs. Email drafting. What I would recommend, and what we do recommend, is that you build what we call custom GPTs for different type of emails. We would build one for funding submissions. So you would build a persona of who the bank is or who the funding source is. You already have your persona, and you would work right through that prompt in terms of the output. Same thing if you're using it for prospecting of current, there's a big distinct difference between current customers and repeat customers. We want to talk differently because they're two different personas that we're engaged with from a business perspective. The third thing we want to do is also leverage the email drafting for long form and short form. When we understand who we're emailing, some funding sources want bullet points, concise. Some funding sources want long narratives. So you're able to have your outputs be reflective of what the funding source is asking for. And we all know some funding sources ask for specific niche things that is good for that funding source, but maybe another funding source doesn't leverage or use. So that's where you really get into the custom prompting and building out that Lego that I talked about relative to a foundation versus having to go in and redo that every single time. So what I would highly recommend is take your number one funding source, do a persona search on who they are, and then build out your prompt on what you're trying to achieve with that funding source. If it's around specific transaction sizes, specific assets, specific nuances in terms of credit scores. And remember, all this is in your tenant. So you're not doing anything from a privacy perspective that will get you in trouble. Okay. As long as you have it set up, you're paying for it, it's in your tenant, and you have it set where the data is not being used to train other LLMs. And if you have questions, email me that. I can send you a Loom video real quick on how to set it up. It's really easy. And also, I can show you how to do your master prompt that we talked about before. Another area to leverage LLMs is research. And this is where it goes back again to your prompting. You have to give it the proper tools to understand what it wants to search versus saying, hey, explain to me section 179. Okay. You want to get very specific and ask exactly what you're trying to achieve from that research. For example, I'm going to show you an example a little bit in terms of you want to research to sound different than maybe your competitors with a model by asking it certain questions relative to that specific industry to add value versus just asking for another transaction, where you can have common ground and have developed that relationship with either prospects and or existing customers and or dealers and vendors. That's where the magic comes in with these different prompts. You can really start to sound different versus everyone else when you're engaged with a proper framework of how to prompt. Any questions, Monica?
No questions, just a comment from Paul. He said he was skeptical in the past and he's been playing with Google Gemini to assist with the creation of solicitation emails, follow-up emails, and to draw pictures. So you started by referencing prompts and you've got all his attention. He's very impressed and thanks you for sharing your time and knowledge. So.
Yeah, and Gemini is an amazing tool. There's really no bad tools. All the tools serve a purpose and serve a, and there's always debate on which model will come out, 3 years from now. You can never go wrong with Google Gemini. They have the largest knowledge base, and it's an incredible tool. But the skill set that we're teaching here today, and the skill set that I would focus on and study and learn, is how to drive these machines, how to drive these LLMs with the prompting. So, a couple non-negotiables, the billboard test. If you wouldn't put it on a billboard, don't put it in public AI. That is the AI if you're not paying the $20 a month. That's a public AI. They're going to take that data, they're going to distill it into the learning models, and now it's not private any longer. So if you're not using your own tenant, think of it as a billboard. Would you put it on a billboard? The calculator rules. Sometimes we try and leverage AI from a math perspective. We've had clients trying to build amortization schedules within a model, and it's just not built to do that. Never trust it with a rate perspective and or amortization. That's why we have t-value versus having trying to leverage the models. We've actually have built a t-value GPT that you can actually put your context into that and have it teach you how to use t-value for different type of structures. And then we always have to remember that AI is a team member. It is a team member that we leverage. It's never going to replace anyone. However, it's a team member that you can leverage in terms of your marketing, in terms of analysis, in terms of research, in terms of just helping you do your job faster. From a doc request to a email to a funding source on a transaction to researching a certain marketplace. To matter of fact, we have a client that leverages it. Their salespeople use it for business development in terms of the dealers that they're going to hit based off the personas in their geography, and then they build out talking points that the sales rep should be talking about. So they're giving consistent tools when the sales rep is calling on that dealer and or vendor versus the dealer's persona versus walking in and sounding like everyone else. That's how AI should be used to really evangelize who you are and assist you to sound different. Because if you don't do that, AI sounds like everyone else. Here's another little secret for inside baseball. If you notice your outputs, there's a lot of dashes and outputs. And if you go to LinkedIn or any posts or any websites and you see a dash in the middle of a sentence, that's what they call an M dash. Add to your prompt, remove all M dashes. Sometimes it still hallucinates and you'll see an M dash. But if you want to look like a real AI pro, as soon as you eliminate your M dashes, then people that are in AI will understand. And also, M dashes is a sign of maybe a human not in the loop. You didn't check your work. However, if you're proactive with that and say, please remove all M dashes after the output or even in your master prompt, you'll no longer have those what they call artifacts be in the output. That's a little inside secret for you. Um, so email drafting from bullets. Draft a polite email to a client name asking for missing tax returns 23 and 24. Mention we need them by Friday to lock in the rate. The output is very concise. It will provide you a subject line, action required, it uses verbs quite a bit. Hope you're doing well. You can take that out if you want. There was a time where you could tell every AI email was, I hope you're doing well. Every email started with that. And you say, oh, okay, that was AI generated. So those are the little patterns that we look for within the outputs that you can, again, niche down and have it be custom to you. And this is where really low risk AI, high volume work, you can really leverage to help expedite different processes. And the result is a professional email. It's a professional, concise email that you can send in seconds with a simple copy paste. Here is another lab that we're going to do, a research actionable summary. And this was the 179. I'm actually going to go to a model here. Hopefully I can do this. As I was telling Monica, I'm very used to Teams on the majority of my calls. So let's do this here. We're going to go here. Stop share. Then we got reshare. Okay. Let me move this. All right. So this is a 5.2, which is your thinking model in terms of for better answers and research. And a lot of people, when 5.2 came out, we had clients call us and say 5.2 is not working, or what is wrong with OpenAI? And it really had nothing to do with 5.2. They were just using the wrong, incorrect model. So here's a prompt that I wrote before. Your task is to assist me as the lead research relative to the construction market in Southeast Michigan. So there's our context, there's our persona, who they're doing, the tasks that they're doing, Southeast Michigan headwinds that they could be facing for conversations that I can have with potential clients and add value to them. Have your output be concise, bullet points, and high value. And again, how we leverage this and how we would recommend you leverage this, it gives you talking points where you sound knowledgeable in an industry that you're serving versus just always asking about financing from a sales perspective. Labor availability, it gives you the right where the data came from a validation perspective. So you're able to look at it and say, here it is. So this is the human in the loop part of that. Materials escalation, vitality, budget blowout risk. We're all talking about the tariffs, unfortunately, and what's taking place with that. Power and utility, public infrastructure is strong, but procurement is painful. What I would now do with this, commercial demand is uneven. I would go in and again, I talk to it. So I would say, please provide me the top three most valuable data points that I can put in an email. So here's the 3 points. I'm going to stay in this LLM and say, your task is now to write a concise email to a business owner in Southeast Michigan relative to financing landscaping equipment. However, sprinkling in the data that is above for a high value output email. Use bullet points and be very concise. No trite words. And again, it's conversational. Now, if you don't like this or if you want to be more aggressive, you can change one simple word. I would like the email to be more aggressive with a call to action. See how the tone has changed. Let's lock in your equipment financing this week versus up here, quick financing notes. So it's a different tone, and that's how you can drive these to really leverage your outputs for the situation. Now we can say, please write an email that's more empathetic. Only use one bullet point that's the highest value in terms of understanding the situation that these business owners are in Southeast Michigan. So those are three examples on how we started with research. We stayed right in the same model in terms of the email output. And then we're able to change the tone for three different type of outputs relative to how we want to send that email to the client. Eventually, you're going to be able to actually email right out of OpenAI. You're going to actually be able to send email to Jim at Bob's Excavating, and the email will actually come right out of OpenAI, will go in your Outlook as a record, and you'll have it there. Let me show you another a doc request GPT that we built. So this is how we build GPTs. I'll show you behind the scenes here a little bit. So this is the instructions, the role, and this is built right off of our prompting schema that we leverage. And this is what we call a conversational prompt. So there's different type of prompting in terms of research, in terms of conversational. A conversational prompt will ask you a question one by one. So this is a doc request. So one of the responses was we would like to start leveraging for doc requests. We're not sure how. So here's example of a doc request. And this is the vendor dealer name. So Alta, the end user, Jim's Excavating. This is your approval number 1991212. Send the documents to johndoe@aol.com. 315-529-2903. johndoe@aol.com. EFA. $35,000. No tax quoted. $35,000. 60 months. $399.99. $595. Use tax exempt. Two advance payments. No pre-funding. The end user is ready for documents. The dealer is ready with the piece of equipment. So if we could have this expedited, please copy me on the docs when they're sent to the end user. Now here's your output, everything that we just walked through. And we're able to, you can customize this in terms of what that funding source. So if you want to have one for North Mill or for Emer or for whoever, you can actually build this doc request specifically with the special notes. And then it will actually produce you the email. Yes, please produce the email. Simply a copy paste. And you're able to also, this is generic in terms right now, but you could actually have Emer's or whoever the funding source's email built into the GPT as well as your contact information. So again, to build these tools though, you have to understand the framework of how to build a prompt. And that's why we're so focused on that.
I
Here's
would
another.
say if you were going to use this for doc preparation, you would probably not want to use the free version.
No, you cannot use the free version. Everything that I'm speaking about is on a paid version. And a paid version is $20. It's the best $20 that you'll ever spend in terms of a cost, in terms of leveraging it to get a return. Just think about this. If you're able to build one doc request or one tool for a doc request, how much time is that going to save you? Even if it saves you 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but it's going to give you consistency on your output to your funding sources. And we all know that we have to make it as easy as possible in the world we live in for our funding sources to push deals through versus trying to piece together the puzzle. Here is the T-value tool that I spoke about earlier. It's just an instruction knowledge base. If you're doing a real complex transaction, um, this is another tool that we use. This is what we call the prompt surgeon. And we've been working on this for a year and a half, and this is free. Just email me. I'll send it to you. And this is a shortcut on building your prompts. So you could actually take any prompt that we've used here. Let's see here. Um, let's take this prompt that we wrote up here. And we put it into our prompt surgeon.
We have a question. It says, I use Copilot via my Microsoft account. Should I be paying a fee or is it built into my Microsoft annual fee?
It's built into your annual Microsoft fee, as well as if you're leveraging Microsoft Copilot, you are in a private tenant as well. So you're protected there. So here's this prompt that I used a little bit ago that I just spoke into the LLM, and then I asked the prompt surgeon to build out a stronger prompt, and you can see how fine-tuned this prompt really gets. So it's really from a mechanical perspective, you can really get really granular on your prompts, or you can stay high level. And see, this is really going to regulatory, environment pressure, bottlenecks, demand mismatch. So I would ask it then if you like tailor talking points for specific client segments, general contractors, developers, architects, they can execute on another slide version for this. So I would say, please, Kate, stay consistent and concise on general contractors as we would like to send them a prospecting emails for Southeast Michigan.
Do you find one AI to be better than the other when it comes to this sort of thing?
There, yes, the answer is yes. However, I would hate for people to get caught up on trying to figure out what model to use for certain things and lose focus on prompting. Because if you're not able to prompt well, it doesn't matter what model you're using. For example, we use Grok for real-time market settlement because the database that it's leveraging in terms of the knowledge is up to date every single day. Where if you use 4.0 like we're using here, the data point is cut off, so it's not going to have current data up to the moment, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. If someone would like to put their website in the chat, I could copy paste it and show you what I spoke about earlier relative to the persona of their organization. This is our brand persona tool. Here we go.
You see that one?
Yep. Thank you, Bill. So this is actually asking starting with the customer personas that it's taking. Oh, why didn't it? There we go. So Bill, this is who by reading your website, who it believes you are selling to. Growth-focused business owners, equipment buyers, decision makers in the business across manufacturing, construction, technology, healthcare, energy, food service, waste management, who need capital to acquire. And that's, again, it shows you where the information comes from, the demographics. The psychographics is another, we use what they call NLP, which is your psychographics in terms of business development emails, which is extremely powerful because it provides an output that is easy for the reader to understand, specifically for the demographics that you're sending that email to. Trigger and needs, what the trigger is for them to leverage your services, your partners, your stakeholders, borrowers, investors seeking specialized opportunities. Here's your brand voice and positioning cues, your tone, professional, solutions-oriented engineering. Now we would take this, I would actually probably fine tune it for you, Bill, to a little bit tighter to actually, ask relative to your three verticals that you're really focused on and or growth verticals that you're focused on versus being as wide as it is right here. So you're also, it takes into consideration your dealers as well as your end users. Okay. Provide a competitive positioning analysis or recommend messaging refinements to better target these personas. Please provide a competitive positioning analysis with refinement to better target the personas that you feel are high value for us to serve their equipment financing needs. Be specific and concise and stay on task. And this is the thinking model. This is where you're using the 5.2, which is really conceptually thinking through things. So this is who is showing that you're competing against traditional banks, captive finance arms, which a lot of this we already know. This is common knowledge. However, the differencing in your outputs in terms of your communication is you're not selling money. You're trying to sell capital architecture for equipment-driven growth. Very strong. This is an M dash that we talked about right here. This little artifact right here, that's what they call an M dash. High value personas. So now it's going to prioritize your tier one and why, tier two, why, your competitive gaps and refinement recommendations, reframe speed and precision, elevate the engineered concept of decision framework. What I also like to do is I like to ask, please evaluate the website from our end user persona and ensure that our talking points are clear and understandable for the end user to take action to use us for financing.
Do you have to use, tell it to get rid of the M dash every single prompt, or can there be some overall thing?
Yeah, we do it overall in our custom GPTs. So right now, I must have missed it in terms of the M dash. That's why I kicked it out. But you could say, please remove all M dashes in your future outputs, as well as provide me a concise reading of the website to ensure that the end users that come to our site understand who we are, as well as a very clear call to action.
Right.
And this is the fine tuning that you're really able to do with all your marketing materials, the way you talk to your customers, and really break it down into a strategic, systematic way. And that's why we talk about our tagline is AI is a tool, leadership is the strategy. And it's really the leadership of how you're leveraging these tools to really drive, the outputs and really fine tune your business. So here, concise reading of the website, what an end user should understand within 10 seconds, who you are. I'd be curious, Bill, is this accurate? Do you find this accurate in terms of the answers, the output that it's providing us? You not sell off the shelf financing structure, who you business owners, CFOs. I'm always fascinated too in terms of the end user profile, in terms of business owners versus CFOs, because CFOs traditionally, as we all know, is in a large organization. And a lot of times the clients that we're serving are really just business owners. And with that, a lot of times in our persona, we'll use our persona is a business owner that time is their most valuable asset that they have. So please be very concise and speak to the business owner precisely versus using, long-winded words and things of that nature. Another secret too is if it provides you an output or if you're trying to figure something out, this is an oldie but a goodie. I'll say, speak to me like a seventh grader or explain this topic to me. I'm a hockey coach. Explain this to me in hockey terms because there's a lot of time you can learn so many new things that you've never read before, don't quite understand, and you want to learn them and not speak, incorrectly about them. So a lot of times you can break down certain specific topics like that. Here's your anchor. When you're writing your prompts as well, the anchor is really that task that you're trying to do, and you want the prompt to stay anchored, what they call anchored to that task. Because if it's not anchored to that task, that's when it will run rampant and it will go out and hallucinate. Now I'm going to show you how we pressure check this.
And Bill said yes to accuracy, and he said a team member spent a lot of time refining their message about who they are.
Perfect. Please pressure test this above to ensure that it's concise, spot on, and is adding as much value as possible for our clients to have a sound call to action relative to working with us. And this is just that fine tuning over and over and over again. I love the pressure test. Another tool we use is what we call red team. Please red team this to validate. This qualify, understand, yes, but it can be tighter. We engineer equipment financing for businesses that need capital built around how they actually operate. Um, Pressure test value to the client. Does this message clearly answer why would I talk to you instead of a bank, captive, or broker? Partially, the differentiators are present, but not explicit enough. Your value is not speed or access, it's structure and judgment. An interesting fact also, right now, the number one degree that people are hiring for are English writers. And the reason why that's the number one degree that people are trying to hire English writers is that they can articulate and they're very literal in the English language. And when you really get fine-tuning prompting, you'll be amazed on how one little word will change that output. Not worse or better, or it doesn't make it where you should not be using these. It's that fine tuning again. It's that muscle that you're using prompting to the degree that it should be. Then you look over here on my left, you can see the different GPTs that we've built out. Here's a equipment finance strategy, and this one's been used over 1,000 times. I'm not able to see any of the prompts or the outputs. It's just a tool that we built off of knowledge bases relative to the CLFP, 25 years of my sales training with NLP. You can see the documents. I'll show you the documents here that we use as our knowledge bases. So here's all the different knowledge bases that we have in terms of driving this LLM, and then to use it as a sales tool. So if you have a brand new sales rep that you're training, you can ask them to leverage this mod or leverage this tool relative to who they're calling on and everything we talked about. And it's a shortcut that it's already been built for them, so they're not having to build out the persona. So with that being said, I have 10 minutes left for any Q&A.
Great. And just as a reminder, you can put your questions either in the Q&A box or the chat. Most of the interaction's been on chat, but you can put it in either place. Or you can do the raise your hand feature if you would like to speak.
Monica, you asked earlier in regards to what models or what LLMs we like more than others. Here's just an example of using OpenAI, all the different models that you're leveraging, and how you pick those is just drop down right here, and you can pick the different models and how they should be used. So drafting email from bullets, GP 4.1, Claude, Sonnet. Claude is a very powerful tool. If you're using Excel spreadsheets, Claude hands down is the best tool to leverage. You're able to put a Excel spreadsheet and ask it to analyze it, ask it to reformat it, ask it to do the macros in it. It's an extremely powerful tool, the Claude Opus and or Sonnet, and as well as you're able to do projects. Monica, if you want, I could come back and do a training on how we leverage projects in OpenAI as well. These are projects right here that I discussed earlier. So here's my different projects that I have, and then you can see the different threads. Maybe that one doesn't have any threads. That could be a brand new one. Here's the different threads that are in this project, and then here are the files from a knowledge base perspective, and here's my instructions. And this is, again, another tool when I'm working specifically on building agents. I can come in here, keep track of all my chats. It doesn't bleed out into the other threads. And then I'm able to just leverage this and build out different tools that I'm using to serve our clients in different phases and things of that nature. And we have all kinds of them. I also use it for personal, for vacation planning. It's a great tool for budgeting, for tax work, because it gives you a repository where you're able to go back and reference, and it's memory based, so it keeps it in that what we call project and thread from a memory perspective.
We have Paul wants to ask a question. I'm going to unmute him to speak.
Thanks very much, Monica. I'm very impressed. I appreciate your sharing your time and knowledge, sir. Very impressed. And it's very overwhelming. I'm right back in sophomore English class. Question. A simple question, I think. I'm in Google Sheets. I have a list of company names, company addresses, including city, state, zip code, and I have another column off to the right. Can my AI tool go out onto the internet, retrieve a phone number, the primary phone number or phone numbers for said company name and address, and return by populating a column of cells in Google Sheets?
So let's take, Paul, one task at a time. So the first task you would ask your LLM is, per the list of clients here, I would like you to go what they call scrape the internet and bring back active phone numbers, an active link to the website, and an active contact from the website. So that's the first task. The second task to that would be when you put it in your Google Sheet, there's typically an area where it will ask you in Gemini on the side, would you like to format or template that input? And then you can say yes, and then you hit insert and it'll go into your Google Doc.
And so the answer to the question I'm hearing is yes, I could populate a Google spreadsheet with data scraped from the internet.
Correct. And if you're using Gemini, you can actually ask Gemini to build you that template to say, please provide, this is an inside hack as well. You can ask the LLMs to build your prompts for you. Just tell it, again, conversationally, tell it what you want it to do. I'm doing business prospecting. I'd like you to scrape the internet for the contact phone number, contact email, bring me back the link of the company's website, format it into a Google Sheet, that I'll be able to leverage to take notes on. Then it'll give you your output. And then you can say to Gemini, build me a prompt to automate this output into that Google sheet. And then it'll just format it. It's amazing. We build questionnaires where you used to have to type it in and things of that nature. And I'm sure Survey Monkey probably has that for you, Monica, to a certain degree, where you just tell it what it wants and it populates and builds it now for you.
Amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome, Paul. Thank you for the compliment. Any other questions?
I am not seeing any questions, and I know we only have about 4 minutes left. So yes, at this time, we'll wrap it up. And do you want to provide your email address in case somebody wants to reach out to you individually?
Sure. My email is rj@theaiceo.ai, or you can just Google RJ Grimshaw, and I'll pop up. My calling is to help business owners in equipment financing. That's all I want to do. And anything I can do, I'm here to help. I'm here to serve. I'm here to answer questions, give you the proper tools. And as Paul said, it is a lot. It is a lot. I'm not going to disagree. I've been doing this for 3 years and I learn every single day. I get frustrated every single day. But it's a muscle that you need to continue to work, or find the tools that are pre-built. Be very careful though, because a lot of companies are selling sizzle right now and they're not actually working tools. But we can also build you out a prompt guide as well, specifically for equipment financing. And we'll work with you. And it's not very expensive for us to do that, to work with you. So at least you have the tools.
Wonderful. Thank you. So with that, we want to thank everybody for participating. And this webinar will be posted on the members only section of the AACFB website if you'd like to go back and review it at any time in the future. And thanks again for attending. And thank you again, RJ, for sharing your experience with our members today.
Thank you for everyone attending.